Welcome to Closing Conversations, a show for founders, leaders, and sellers who win together. I'm Max Notis. Today's guest is the blueprint for what happens when you combine theater major energy with enterprise sales grit. Kristen Habacht is the CEO of Elly.ai, and her path to the top is anything but typical. From explaining the cloud on a WebEx in 2005 to building revenue engines at Trello, Atlassian, Typeform, and Shogun. She's done it all. CSM, CRO, COO, and now CEO, always with a sharp eye on what actually drives growth. We talk about building product-led machines that scale themselves and why most companies get hiring completely wrong, and the magic that happens when sales and marketing actually work together. Kristen's got a clear point of view, no fluff, and a lot of hard-earned insight. Let's get going. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Glad you're here as well. So I guess for the audience, you want to just tell them about yourself, you're at Elly now, how you got there, just your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I am currently CEO at Elly.ai. I've been in this position for about 6 months now. So I started in December. But I began as every salesperson does. I didn't start as an SDR. I was a account manager first, which is now CSM. So it was kind of before CSM as a title, but I had a book of business. I had to make sure they expanded. I was selling managed security services to financial institutions in like 05, 06. And so most of these folks had never bought SaaS. They didn't know what the cloud was. Like I remember being on this is just where I'll show my age 100%. But I was on like a WebEx, and I had to draw the cloud for somebody. So I drew the cloud, and I drew their data leaving the bank. And I was like, this will be your, T1 line and and just like having to explain to them how this was even going to be possible. So, and it was funny because I was like a theater major and an English major. So I was not technical either. So I was like, I don't know. I hope this is what it looks like. I didn't have a sales engineer. There was no help coming for me. But I started in that role and then just kind of was like, oh, I love sales. It's amazing. I get to talk to people all day long, and it's always kind of different. And you get to it's like improv. You never know what they're going to do on the other side.
Totally.
For better or worse. So then I just kind of became, eventually I was like an SDR manager, and then I was a sales manager and became the VP of sales and success, joined a company called Trello, where I was their first revenue hire as the VP of sales, went to Atlassian for an acquisition, and that was my first time being at a public company running a sales team, and I grew out their Americas enterprise sales team and their APAC team, and then joined a smaller startup as a COO, and I was like, it's still sales all the way up, like even to the CEO, and that's when I started to think I could take all these things that I learned as a CRO and as a COO and combine it and actually do the whole shebang at the CEO level. So yeah, that's sort of how I got here and a little bit about me.
Damn, you're legit.
Thanks. I try.
It's so funny. When you say I found I love sales, I don't think I hear many people say that. Some days you go, oh, this is the best. And other days you're like pulling your hair out and drinking. It's a lot. And I remember when I got into sales, I was in SMB sales. I didn't do the proper SDR route. So, but I remember you're making 300 calls a day. You're getting told to go fuck yourself 300 times a day. And I was a history major, and my parents are like, that's the job you got? I don't think they were happy about it. And then, lo and behold, you make something of it. And yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And you figure, you're drawing that diagram on the cloud. It's making sense to the people on the other side. And then that all clicks, and you kind of catch the bug.
Yeah. I think sales jobs are, it's high highs and low lows, right? You have a great month. It's the best month in your whole life. And then the first is the next day and you're like, oh my God, I'm screwed. But I think sales jobs are the great equalizer. My husband's an engineer. He went to college to be an engineer. He kind of had to pick that path, and that was it. But I think sales, and I've been a sales leader for so many years, it's one of those things where if you come into it and you really dedicate yourself to becoming good at it and honing the craft, anyone can do it.
Mhm.
Like anyone can do it, whether you like it or not, I guess it's up to you, but anyone can do it. And if you're good at it, you can be really successful. And it's one of those things where it's like, you don't have to go to medical school, you don't have to be an engineer, but you can pull like great salaries and have a great job. And it is equal. Like anyone can do it.
I wholeheartedly agree. Like there's not one pedigree of what makes a good seller. Even like extroverts, introverts, like some introverts are the best salespeople I know. Extroverts can talk a lot. They don't necessarily listen very well. And what school did you go to? What's your like race, your background, ethnicity? Like doesn't really none of it really factors in. There are other intangibles and soft skills, things that you're looking at that would define, what someone who would be a good seller. But like you said, like a lot of it's like it's effort, it's coaching, it's feedback, it's all that good stuff. So tell me a little bit about Ellie. Why HR tech? Why now?
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been in leadership positions for, almost 20 years now. And we put so much focus on when you get somebody in the door, how do you onboard them? How do you train them? How do you, all the things about how do you make sure that when you get somebody in, they're set up for success? And I don't think that we've always necessarily spent that same amount of attention on hiring. And so I've experienced this firsthand of like, we will oftentimes throw an AE into a sales, another AE hiring process to get their opinion. We don't tell them how to interview well, or we'll send a first-time sales manager or marketing manager, whatever it is, into a process. And we're just hoping you figure out to some extent how to hire the best person. And maybe you have these things you're looking for in the hiring process, but you're not necessarily even told like how to ask those questions, like how to dig. And so we train salespeople on these things. We train all these other people. We don't do it for hiring. And I thought, man, there's this huge broken process of we all have these deep conversations with these people. We learn all this stuff. It's all lost. Maybe you get a good write-up about a candidate. Maybe you don't. Maybe you get a hire with like one line about why they're a hire. Usually my notes would be something like hire seems great, and I was the VP. Like that was like my level of discipline.
Went to my college.
Right. It kind of like seemed cool. But because I would have been on a sales meeting and then a pipeline meeting and then a whatever. And then I had this 30 minutes where I was meeting this person and I was engaged in those 30 minutes. And then I went to my next set of meetings. And like at the end of the day, I'd get a little reminder like to fill out my greenhouse score. And I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy was great. Yes. And so it's just like, but how do you, if I put that in Salesforce, like deal seems great. Like, it's like I would have been killed for that, but we don't put that same discipline into hiring. And that's like the whole lifeblood of what the company ends up being. And so it's always been something that's like noodled around for me as a problem. And then I think with AI coming in and this being such a manual process, it's very similar to sales in that sense of like you're putting so much into an ATS. It's not a CRM, but it's the same thing. Like this processes are so manual, maintaining the conversation, keeping the next steps going. But like it's disrupted GTM a lot with AI, but I don't feel like the recruiting side and the talent team side got the same attention.
I totally agree. My wife's a recruiter, by the way, and it's the same thing. Like I have her read every email that I write because she's really good at recruiting, aka she's really good at sales. I'm thinking back when I was working at a company and we were bringing in 8 sales hires every month, like clockwork. And then they went through this really rigorous training program. But after like, a year and a half, we were looking at the candidates that we're bringing in and we realized we bring them in and 4 people would interview them. It was the first time we ever had the conversation of, well, what are you asking them? It never even come up. And then we decided, okay, you're going to ask this question. I'll ask this question. I'll ask this question. But then our feedback all became different because now it's all based on this one window of questions that I'm asking them. And, another thing I think is interesting is when do you turn the flip on to start selling the candidate? Something clicks in your head and you decide, I like this person or not. And I think the best interviewers, and maybe I'm wrong. My thought is the people who interview the best or have the best feedback, they know within 30 seconds if this is the right person. And it's from their tone, from a whole lot of things that maybe are considered gut feeling and aren't, wonderfully accepted in recruiting, but you have an idea. At some point you turn the flip on and say like, all right, I want to make this really appealing for this person because I want to get them. And then even with that, like through a 4-round interview, I might have one person who's telling me to take the job and you'd be amazing. And the next person, I didn't answer their first question right. And they're like saying, well, it's really competitive. And like, I have no idea. It is an interesting thing because I think I've worked in the HR tech space myself, and you have the assessments, which are trying to pull the bias out of it and give you a more objective understanding. You have in ATS exactly to help keep track of candidates and make sure that nobody's getting lost. But there is a lot of manual component to that. I'll give you an example. When we were doing those, we were interviewing people for 8 roles every month. It was such a drag for the admin to get everyone to punch it into Greenhouse. And it's like, why? Like, of course you have to put it in there, but like, why? And we'd fill it out on a Microsoft Word document and email the person and then punch it back into Green. It was such like a stupid process. So I get it. And it's such an important thing. Like if it doesn't start well, it's not going to end well. And where does it start with an employee is not onboarding. It's that first interaction with them, getting the right people in the door. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, also like just like how you put everything in Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever for you to not just track what's going on, but so you can go back and look and say, hey, which deals close better, which deals close faster, whatever it might be.
Who the hell voted yes?
Yeah, it's because you're developing an ICP just of what your employees should be. And especially when you're starting off, like how many people start off and hire their first salesperson and they're like, we need somebody who's sold enterprise sales at Slack or Salesforce or whatever. And then those people get in and completely crumble in that environment, right? And so it's like, how do you also start to fine tune who you want, because they're going to be the ones that are most successful. If you go back to look at that data and it's either not there or you don't have those insights about people. And so how do you make it like so easy for that information to get in there that, it just kind of fills it out on its own without you having to be hounded to fill out your Greenhouse scorecard?
Man, you're hitting on a lot of stuff that I wholeheartedly agree with. I mean, we had a whole episode here just recently where we're saying like how many companies go, oh, we need someone from Salesforce. They'll crush it here. And it's actually like very lazy thinking. Like I'm a big believer in hire for their potential and then coach them, like get on the ground, like work with them. And then those people are going to do your job the right way. They're going to appreciate the effort you put in and they'll do more, as opposed to someone who's like, you're like, oh, maybe they'll bring in the Salesforce culture here. Like that is a shortcut that is never going to actually make it all the way.
Yeah, but that goes back to like, what are you actually asking in these interviews and what are you actually evaluating for? If all you're doing is saying like, what's the checkbox of the jobs that they had? It's not necessarily reflective of what kind of success they're going to have, but it is easier than trying to figure out, well, what does entrepreneurial spirit look like? Like what does naturally curious look like? Those are hard things to interview for and assess. So you end up saying like, well, we'll find somebody who's like been taught how to do this by, the kind of companies that know how to teach these things. And that ends up being the default.
You're preaching to a choir over here. So I want to ask you another question because, on this show, we talk to a lot of companies, a lot of sellers who they're building like a sales team. They're building a sales unit and that's how they're attacking the market. We talked about this, how you have to have marketing and sales or it doesn't work. You're building Elly to be really like a self-service engine. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Again, kind of go back to what which is I have historically spent most of my career in product-led growth companies. And so Trello is a product-led growth company. Atlassian famously I was at Typeform as well, which anyone familiar with that. So these are all products that like at the end of the day, you can go onto their website right now, sign up for an account, use the product, pay for the product, grow, pay more for the product, do all of that without having to talk to anybody along the way of the journey. And I think that especially for initial product market fit, it's a great way to get out into the space. You get quick feedback from people. It's easy adoption. There's just a tremendous amount of value that comes with that. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have sales and it doesn't mean you don't have marketing, but it's just a question of like when you apply those people into the process. And so that's where we're kind of going with Elly, which is you can go right on Elly's website right now, sign up, use it, pay, convert, live your whole life and never talk to us if you don't want to. If you don't want to talk to us, we're available. We can answer questions. We can support you. We can do demos for you. But if you don't, that's also okay. But that means you have to have an investment in marketing for sure. And not just like performance marketing. When I say marketing, I mean like brand and product marketing and all of the things that help you understand how to use the product and communicate clearly what you're getting into, as well as, of course, things like performance marketing. But you need to have a lot of investment in the product as well, because the product is the thing that's really taking you through that whole journey.
Totally. And I think in a parallel to like hiring a traditional sales team, first off, I mean, I'm curious to hear what your marketing strategy is. And if you don't want to like give away the secret sauce, that's fine. But even beyond that, it's almost, paralleling it to that proper sales motion is you have to find out what your pitch is so clearly and so you can't rely on a seller, for example, to be able to put a spin on it, or add nuance. It has to be so fucking obvious. This is what it does. This is how it operates. This is the output. And it's so easy to like your messaging has to be so pinpoint. So can you tell me, A, I guess, about how you're marketing, and B, how do you come to that proper messaging?
Yeah. And I think that the other thing it has to really do is it has to actually do it, right? Like the product has to do the thing you say it's going to do, right? And I think I just recently talked to somebody who was looking at Elly, and they were saying, like, we've had a number of these conversations with AI tools and everybody talks a good game, but then like we get into it and it just doesn't do what it said it was going to do. And I think there is a problem right now in AI specifically. And so people have seen things like what happened with 11x. And like there's a bunch of stories of these AI companies that sell on this promise. Like AI SDRs is a great one where it's like they sell on this promise and then people say, okay, you sold me. I'll do the 3-month, paid pilot thing for the 12-month contract. And they get in and it just doesn't work. And so you have these companies that are spiking, but then their churn is like astronomical because the thing just doesn't do it. And so one of the things from a PLG perspective that I think is super important is like, it is what it is. Like we are honest about what you're going to get. We're not spinning something that it's not. We have customer testimonials. We have people talking about how they're using the product out there on the website, on our LinkedIn, and on those places. And we let you get in and see it with you don't have to put a credit card down. You don't have to remember to cancel in 7 days. Like it's fully free for you to get in and do, a number of calls to really test it. And so I think the marketing being very clear and not being kind of like over grandiose on all the many things it's going to solve. It's like your problem is it's hard to balance all of these things. We come in and we take the notes, the write-ups, the reminders, and whatever, off of your plate. And that is what we do. Like that is what we are solving for.
Wow. So, I mean, it must on one hand drive you nuts when you have these AI companies that are over-promising, under-delivering, and churning because it cuts reputability of the whole industry. But at the same time, that also might even be something good for you because it helps you cut through the noise.
Yeah, I think so. I think that
It lowers the expectation. And then when they come in and they're like, oh, this is doing exactly what it's going to do, it's like a breath of fresh air.
And I think it's not just with AI. I mean, I think this has always been one of those things about enterprise sales too, which is like, you can't get in, you can't test it, you can't play with it until you do, a proof of concept into this. And it's 6 months before you realize that this thing is actually going to even do what you want it to do. And I think this has always been the advantage that product-led growth companies have had, which is that there's kind of no hiding behind the fact that you can get in and do this and it either delivers or it doesn't deliver, which is why this has always been a space that I like as a salesperson, right? Like I'd much rather be talking to somebody who can hold me accountable for what I'm saying. Like if I say it's going to do this and you can log right in and it either does that thing or doesn't do that thing, like it's better for me. Like I'm more of a trusted partner with you in that process. Like I know what's going to happen. So I think it's not just AI. I think it's the nature of kind of accessibility of the product right away. And I think that when you do build something like that, going back to the marketing strategy, when you do build something like that, people generally want to help you then. They want to share that with a friend. They want to say like, oh, like I have a recruiter that, I have another recruiter in the company or I have this and I want to share it. We had an email recently where this guy was like, oh, I just recommended you guys to my ex-girlfriend. And we were like, what's that? Like, that's got to be like top tier marketing when like you reached out to your ex and shared this product with them.
You got to share that testimonial like online. Like that's got to be the forefront of the website.
Worth reaching out to ex-girlfriends over. But I think that's the trade-off you get, which is maybe you don't get as big of a deal off the top, but you get it over time. And when you get it, it's really sticky and it's authentic. And those people hopefully then have like a tremendous NPS and love for the company and the product.
This is so fascinating. So then let me ask you another question. So when it comes to, like, I'm thinking when I've worked at a startup, maybe you have somebody who's doing HR and recruiting. And so I can see this one person, they have a little bit more leeway, than a more corporate organization to like try something new. And they try that out. They say, this is great. Hey, I'm going to be using this. You're going to be getting, some interactions from this. At a larger company, how are you getting those folks to get in? Is it that, a C-level executive is saying, this might be worth a shot? Is it that somebody lower is using it and then they notice, hey, a few people on our team are using this? How do you break into those bigger accounts?
Yeah, I think the answer is you get a mix of both, right? We definitely have people who have signed up, paid on their own personal credit card to use it, and have kind of built the case and then gone to, whether it's their head of talent acquisition or their chief people officer or whatever it is, and like said, like, look, I've been using this thing. I want to use it. I want to have like it be sanctioned for the whole team to use it. So you do have that. We call that kind of like, that's your land and expand, right? You land in with one person, you expand out. We do have the traditional tops down sale as well, which is like somebody gets a mandate of like, our CIO has said like, we have to be AI first, or we have to find efficiencies in every function at the company. And so because of that, we're looking at you guys now. And that runs more like a traditional sales cycle in the sense of like, we talk to that decision maker. Maybe they pick a couple of people to run the POC and they can test it. The difference is that it's not a big implementation lift or fee. They can just kind of get up and running. So you have tops down and you have bottoms up, and you have a mix of that. You'll also have like, I heard from another CPO that I'm friends with at a different company that they're using it. And so you still also have that kind of, even at that exec level, that word of mouth travel too.
It's so cool because, I mean, listen, on this show, we're typically talking to sales, like a traditional salesperson, but this is product-led growth. This is the product actually selling itself, and similar reliance on marketing, but it's doing the talking for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, and listen, marketing has goals, right? And when I was the CRO at Typeform, I oversaw all of the revenue. So I had the sales team, I had the marketing team, I had the self-serve revenue. The marketing team, instead of having an MQL goal or something like that, they have a sign-up goal, and they own usually a conversion rate, probably in conjunction with the product team. So you're still responsible, just like pipeline goals, like you're still responsible for not just bringing in the bodies, but making sure that they're the right kind of bodies. So instead of it being an MQL to SQL conversion rate you're watching, it's a free trial, it's a free sign up or user sign up to pay conversion. And so they still have that level of accountability. They oftentimes share an element of that with the product team, but it's not so different. It's just a matter of, do you put a sales person against that? And then once you have those signups and they're converted, usually go back through and you put them in like lifecycle marketing, and then you might generate MQLs off of that then do go to the sales team. But it's just been like sanctioned. It's been a smaller and smaller slice of who you're sending.
Wow, this is like a new world to me. So this is super interesting. So you'd mentioned then also that product-led growth, it's taking care of itself. Your next step in terms of bringing people on or bring on a team is CSMs. Can you tell me a little bit about that and that strategy?
Yeah. So, and I think about, in my world, there's kind of two flavors of CSM, and I manage CSM teams. So, if any CSMs are listening and say there's more than two flavors, yeah, sure. Of course, there's nuance across the spectrum, but generally I'd say there's two spectrums of CSM. One would be more of like very consultative, usually have like a support background. They don't tend to carry a quota. They probably are responsible for retention. That's generally it. And their job is around like adoption, feature usage, engagement. Very important job, really important, especially in enterprise sales where it's complex. You got to make sure everything's set up right and you're still going. And then you have this other flavor of CSM, which is more like that account manager model, which is you oftentimes will own a retention number, but you'll own an expansion number as well. And you'll get, the way we did it at Trello is you got commission off the expansion number and you got a flat rate off of your renewal number. So if your renewal number came in at whatever percentage, you got, call it $500. Didn't matter if you had a lot up for renewal that month or a little, it was just, that's the rate. And then where you really made your money was on that expansion. And those folks work like salespeople. They are finding, who else can you connect me with at the company? How can I get in front of that decision maker? I'm going to do this roll-up model. And they usually have sales backgrounds, but they've wanted to move away a little bit from maybe the pressure of being told to bugger off and everything that comes to being a cold first round salesperson to something where it's still aggressive. You still can make that money, but you're playing in a warmer pool of people.
Wow. I mean, these are salespeople. They're just salespeople with a warmer pool of leads, essentially, to be going after. And then that's how you're really cracking open the bigger organizations, or at least expediting that process.
Yeah, exactly. So those folks, like for us, at Trello, if I go back to that example, we would find like Uber had, like 100 people already using Trello, but all in different pockets. And so we called him an account manager at the time, but we put an account manager against it. And that person spent months doing nothing but like talking to every pocket of those free users, finding who the decision maker was, getting that connected, building the case for why these folks shouldn't all be on the free paid version, going through the whole process. And they ended up landing our first like 6-figure contract. And so that's a sales function, but they did it from this lens of we had a pool of people who were either paying us a little bit of money already or some amount of money, and they had to now go roll all that up to like an enterprise sale.
Wow. Do you ever bring on a purely outbound team in, as far as you can see at this point, or is it you just build it, you're just farming it right there?
We never built on a purely outbound team at Trello.
It doesn't sound like you need to.
No, we had a team that would go after free users before they converted to try and get them potentially to convert faster if they were bigger accounts, but never true outbound in the sense of like they didn't have any familiarity with us. And same with Typeform, it was the same. We didn't do that. So I think there are times that it's warranted, but just again, and Atlassian's its own beast. But like when I was at Atlassian, we were already a public company, and I grew that team, I don't know, 3 or 4x the size it was, and that was still without touching true outbound. So,
well, I mean, you're also probably even driving such a quality at this point where you're expanding to the CSMs and whatnot, who are really salespeople. You're bringing on, they're calling people who are not just using the free trial, or people who are, even using it, but it's one person at 100-person organization. But you probably even have, you'd call it lower quality leads, where it's people who have been clicking, they've been engaging with it. They're just, maybe if I can get them on the horn, I can do something with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I really do think like ultimately I leave the cold warm up to marketing. And that's that like one to many. And I don't know, it's interesting, right? Like when I grew up, when I started in sales, I managed an SDR team. It was a pure outbound team, like to your point, like 100 dials a day, open up the phone book. Like these people have no knowledge of who you are kind of thing. And it worked, right? It worked. I think it's harder for that to work right now. I think it is. I think people want to be warmed up more. I think people want to do their own discovery more. I think people want to be referred by partners and by trusted advisors in the space. And so it's not that I think cold outbound is dead by any means, but I think like you have to be really smart about how you do it.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that people are more skeptical of sellers in general right now than they've probably ever been. One of the things that I've kind of been getting on a high horse about is people are so sick of the like, if I take a sales call, it means they're going to pepper me with questions for the first 10 minutes. Why? Because their manager said you have to ask questions, and that's the methodology. And then they're going to walk me through their slides about why we're different. And they're going to show me a demo, and I lean in, and I'm going to be critical of it. And then I ask the price, and they're either going to like try to like finagle it a little bit, or they're going to make me book another goddamn half hour to even hear the price. And people are like, they're sick of this. Like it's this maybe 2 years ago, this you could do this, and this is how things were sold. But I think people also forgot how to sell in that process. I'm a big believer in cold calling these days. I think that anything that differentiates you and really shows I'm a human, compared to like it used to be, write a really personalized email. Now those are everywhere and easy to come across. I think here's the thing. I think where I'm going with this is I think that a certain product like Elly, like Trello, is simple enough to sell itself. I don't know that everything could just sell itself like that. And if so, I mean, but I think also the common denominator is there has to be really sharp marketing. Like you're saying, the audience has to be warmed up. They have to have some familiarity, with who you are, with your logo, with what you're doing, because it's going to be hard to like full on trust something if there is none of that.
Certainly not every product is queued up to be a good PLG product. And And I sit on boards of companies that are not PLG products, but I think it does come down to like, in my opinion, sales and marketing. It's one of those things where like whenever you find something that works, you only have like this very small window of time where that thing works before everyone's over it. So it's like very personalized email. That was the thing. Then I got around. And then I was like, oh, sending LinkedIn messages to people is like the thing. Now I can't even, my LinkedIn inbox is a disaster zone because like I can't even read anything in it. And so, but it's always like the target's always moving. So the funny thing is like, I do think cold calling and also like physical mail has come back a lot because it's so rare. It cuts back through. But yeah, but then the new thing now, and we had a lot of success with this at Typeform, is like influencer marketing, which we stole. B2B has stolen that from consumer businesses, right? Because like all of a sudden TikTok and Instagram, you were like, oh, I like this person and I like their hair, and oh, they're selling a hair product. I should buy that hair product. And then it's like, oh, this person's a brilliant marketer. I respect them. They're talking about their tech stack. Oh, I should look at their tech stack. And so like you're just always finding new ways to cut through it. That's all.
It's almost like a consultant at that point. They're like, I don't want to go through 7 demos. Just tell me what to buy. Like, tell me what to look at. And then even in my meeting, at least if they say, well, what are people doing? I know the name of something. I float that out there, and then that's probably what we're going to end up going with, just because I picked it up on a medium that was convenient for me. There was a salesperson that I was coaching. He was at a company where they were selling managed services like IT, external IT work. And the website was broken, and they didn't come up when you searched for them in their own town. And it's like, you only get one first impression, with a client. And the person who was selling and booking appointments had the hardest sales job I've ever seen, because it was like walking against the tide on every single call. And then when you'd get them on, you almost had to explain this is why it's this way. But otherwise it's like swimming with the current, and you're going way faster than you're like body surfing. Like, you're not actually going that fast. It's like the ocean's carrying you, and you're doing the right things to get where you need to within that current.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, I got to tell you, believe it or not, we're at time. This was awesome.
Great. Yeah, it was fun.
Awesome. Any last words for the audience? Anything you want to share?
I mean, like I said, I think like, keep trying new stuff. Like that's the one lesson I've definitely learned, which is like every time I think I've figured out the model to be successful, it's gone 6 months later, a year later. Right. And so I think we don't probably do enough to really teach our sellers and ourselves that like, this is not a static moment. Like we have to keep changing stuff. And so for me, PLG is still something I index on, but like maybe not in a year. I don't know. Things are going to keep moving. We have to keep moving with them.
I'm rooting for you.
Thank you.
All right, Kristen, great having you on the show. We will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
All right. And that's a wrap for this episode of Closing Conversations. Huge thanks to Kristen Habacht for joining me. It's always refreshing to hear from a CEO who's done the CRO work and knows how to build a product that sells itself. If you liked the episode, subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who'd appreciate the real talk. For more on building sales teams that deliver, visit commissionsales.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, let's get closing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, you can always catch us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for more episodes of Closing Conversations.